Hi 7th graders, I hope you've been doing well. Today we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting fractions, but with negative numbers. So your learning target is I can add and subtract negative fractions by finding the least common multiple for the denominators and adding the opposite when subtracting. Alright, so when we are adding these numbers, let's look at the first example. Taking 1/2 plus 1/3. So I need to figure out my common denominator. If you don't already know what it is, you can start counting by 2s and counting by 3s. 2, 4, 6, 3, 6. So my least common denominator is going to be 6. Okay, so that means I need to multiply 1/2 by what to get a denominator of 6? Right, I need to multiply 1/2 by 3 and 1/3 by what? Right, 1/3 by 2. So I'm taking 3 times 1, which is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have added my fractions. Now I'm going to just add my numerators. 3 plus 2 is 5. My denominator stays the same. Alright, so one thing I do want to remind us when we are adding negatives. This one wasn't an example with a negative one, but as we get going, they will be. If your number is the same sign, or if both of your numbers are positive, you just add the numbers like normal. If both your numbers are negative, ignore the negatives, add your numbers, and add the negative at the end. Okay, if both of your numbers are, if your numbers are different, one's positive, one's negative, then you subtract your numbers and keep the sign of the biggest number. Let's get started. 1/4 and 7/10. We want to rewrite our first number with common denominators. So when you think about 4 and 10, what numbers would be a common denominator that they both have? You could write it out, but I'll just tell you our common denominator is going to be 20. So 10 times what gives us 20? Right, 10 times 2. And 4 times what gives us 20? Right, 4 times 5. So I'm taking 1 times 5, which is 5, over 20, plus 10 times 2 gave me 20, so 7 times 2 gives me 14. Alright, so that's what we're going to fill out in the first box. So both my numbers have common denominators now. Both my signs are positive, so I'm going to add. So I'm taking 5 over 20 plus 14 over 20. Oops. And when you add 5 plus 14, you get 19, and your denominator stays the same. So your answer is 19 over 20. Okay, I hope that one was a good review from yesterday's video. Let's look at the second one. -5/6 plus 7/8. So we need to figure out our common denominator. You can do least common multiples. So let's do 6 and 8 down here. 6, 12, 18, 24, 8, 16, 24. So 24 is my common denominator. So 8 times what gives me 24? 8 times 3. 6 times what gives me 24? 6 times 4. So now we're going to rewrite our numbers over here. 4 times 5 gives me 20, and that's a negative. 4 times 6 gives me 24. Plus 7 times 3 gives me 21. 8 times 3 gives me 24. So now I have -20 over 24 plus 21 over 24. So if you notice, I have a negative and I have a positive. So that means I am subtracting my numbers. Okay, so when I'm subtracting them, we're going to write it over here. We're really doing 21 over 24 minus 20 over 24. When you subtract those numbers, 21 minus 20 gives you 1. And your denominator stays the same. So 1 over 24. Alright, let's look at the third one. negative 1/5 plus negative 4 over 15. So if you notice, our common denominator is going to be 15 because I can take a number times 5 to give me 15. So 5 times 3 gives me 15, so that's the number I'm multiplying. We'll rewrite our fractions over here. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15. So I have negative 3/15 plus negative 4/15. Alright, I have a negative and a negative. So both my signs are the same, which tells me I am adding my numbers. Okay, so we're going to ignore our negatives. I have 3 over 15 plus 4 over 15. And both my numbers are negative that I'm adding. I know my answer is going to be negative. So now we just add like normal. 3 plus 4 gives me 7, and my denominator stays the same. Alright, and our last one for adding. I have negative 7 over 9 plus 1 over 6. Let's write our least common multiples out for this one. 9, I have 9, 18, 27, and then for 6's, I have 6, 12, 18, and I can stop there because they both have 18 in common. So 18 is going to be my common denominator. 9 times 2 gives me 18, so I'm going to need to do 7 times 2. And 6 times 3 gives me 18, so I'm going to need to do 1 times 3. So let's write our fractions over here. 2 times 7 is 14, and just a reminder, that one's a negative number. 2 times 9 is 18, plus 3 times 1 is 3, over 6 times 3 is 18. Alright, so let's look above. I have a negative and I have a positive, so I have different signs, which tells me I am subtracting my numbers. So we're going to ignore our negative for right now. I'm going to take 14 over 18 minus 3 over 18. 14 minus 3 is 11. My denominator stays the same. But now we need to figure out if our answer is positive or negative. So which number is bigger, 14 or 3? Right, 14 is, and 14 is negative, so my answer is negative 11 over 18. Alright, so that's adding. Now let's move to subtracting. So now if you notice, there's keep, change at the top. That's exactly how we're going to solve subtraction problems when we have negative numbers. It makes it so much easier than trying to figure out what your answer would be. Alright, so the first thing we need to do when we are subtracting is we still need to find common denominators. And if you notice, these first couple are exactly the same as these ones up here, the denominators wise. So we already know that 10 and 4, our common denominator is going to be 20. 4 times 5 gives me 20, and 10 times 2 gives us 20. So now let's multiply. 2 times 7 is 14 over 20, minus 1 times 5 is 5 over 20. Alright, now we need to add the opposite, so we need to do keep, change, change. Okay, so I keep my first number, 14 over 20. Change my minus to a plus, change my positive 5 over 20 to a negative 5 over 20. And now when we do this, I notice that I have a positive and I have a negative. So I'm going to subtract these numbers. 14 over 20 minus 5 over 20. 14 minus 5 gives me 9, and my denominator stays the same. And then to figure out if our answer is positive or negative, which number is bigger, 14 or 5? Right, 14 is, and 14 is positive, so my answer is positive. Alright, let's look at our second one. I have 5/6 minus 7/8. So again, we need common denominators, and up above we had common denominators of 6 and 8. So our denominator will now be 24. 8 times 3 gives me 24. 6 times 4 gives me 24. So let's rewrite our fractions. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. Minus 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24. So I rewrote my numbers. Now I need to do keep, change because I am subtracting. So I like to label it keep, change. I keep 20 over 24. Change my minus to a plus. Change my negative 21 over 20, change my positive 21 over 24 to a negative 21 over 24. Now I have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract my numbers. 21 over 24 minus 20 over 24. Subtract the numerator. 21 minus 20 gives you 1. Your denominator stays the same, but is this answer positive or negative? Which number is bigger, 20 or 21? Right, 21 is bigger and 21 is negative, so this is a negative 1 over 24. Alright, let's move on to the third one. Negative 1/5 minus a negative 4 over 15. So again, I know my denominator is going to be 15. 5 times 3 gives me 15, so let's rewrite this. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15. This was a negative. Minus a negative 4 over 15. Alright, now we need to do keep, change because I'm subtracting. So my negative 3 over 15 stays the same. Change my minus to a plus. Change my negative 4 over 15 to a positive 4 over 15. And now if you notice, I have a negative and I have a positive, which means I am subtracting my numbers again. So I'm taking 4 over 15 minus 3 over 15. When you subtract 4 minus 3, you get 1, and your denominator stays the same. Now let's figure out if it's negative or positive. Which number is bigger, negative 3 or 4? Right, this 4 is bigger and it's positive, so my answer is also positive. Alright, 2 to go. Oops. Taking negative 7 over 9 minus 1/6. So again, up above, I said my common denominator would be 18. So 9 times 2 gives me 18. And 6 times 3 gives me 18. So let's rewrite our numbers. 2 times 7 gives me 14. 2 times 9 is 18. Minus 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 3 is 18. Now we need to do keep, change because I am subtracting. So I keep negative 14 over 18. Change my minus to a plus. Change my positive 3 over 18 to a negative 3 over 18. Oh, that's kind of hard to tell it's negative there. Alright, if you notice, I have 2 negatives, so my signs are the same. So that means I just add them. So I'm taking 14 over 18 plus 3 over 18. You add those numbers. 14 plus 3 gives you 17. Our denominator stays the same. But since both my numbers were negative, my answer is also negative. Alright, last one. Taking negative 1/2 minus a negative 6/7. So we need to figure out our common denominator. So you can count by 2s and count by 7s. 7, 14, 21, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and that's the winner. 2 times 7 gave me 14. 7 times 2 gives me 14, so let's rewrite these fractions. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. Minus a negative. 6 times 2 is 12. 7 times 2 is 14. Alright, now we're going to use keep, change because I'm subtracting again. So let's rewrite that in the next box. My negative 7/14 stays the same. I change my minus to a plus, and I change my negative 12 over 14 to a positive 12 over 14. Now if you notice, I have a negative and I have a positive, so I'm going to subtract my numbers. 12 over 14 minus 7 over 14. Oops, I'll write that over here. Sorry. 12 minus 7 gives me 5, and my denominator stays the same. And now we figure out if our answer is positive or negative. Which number is bigger, 12 or 7? Right, 12 is. And 12 is positive, so my answer is also positive. Alright, our code word of the day is snow. If you have made it all the way to the end of this video, you can message me on Schoology the word snow, and you will receive 1 bonus point on any assignment you don't have a 10 out of 10 on. Alright, there is one IXL to do. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have